Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday, happy Monday. I decided to go live a little bit earlier today because I got a crazy morning. And I'm going to Vegas tonight to give a speech. And I had to juggle things, so I wanted to come on a little bit early to make sure I got on Monday. And if you don't make this, it's fine because I will be emailing it to everybody in the group, a link. Kevin will be sure to do that. But for those that can join, I'll give a second for everyone to jump on and we'll get started. I'll spend 5 minutes. I got something I want to bring up that's been coming up in the group. I think it'll be super helpful. And we'll get started. As you guys come in, I see the 2 people here already. Just type in who's on so I can get to know. I want to marry the names to the faces so I get to know as many people as possible in the group. But this is what I wanted to share with everybody today. So Monday morning, start of a new week. We've started to cover a little bit about goals and staying in the game and accomplishing goals. But a lot of people have asked me, when's the right time to get out? What if something's not working? When do you know how to bail on something? Hey, Mike, there we go. Good morning, Michael. Good to meet you. Good to see you. A lot of people have asked me, when is the right time to bail? When's the right time to get out? So I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes and talk about things that I don't want to say quit, but gotten out of, or called an audible or folded up shop because it was too taxing, too stressful. I didn't think I could do it. It wasn't working. And I want to talk about that process of kind of what I went through and what were the steps to make a decision this wasn't for me, I got to bail. Before I want to do that, the flip side of that is I think a lot of people have also asked me through DM and other stuff here, some of the comments about how do you ramp up and scale your business and how do you scale anything? How do you go from a 5K to a 10K to a marathon? How do you go from 200,000 in sales to $1 million in sales? How do you go from an idea to, and I just want to say something about scale. Everybody talks about scaling and growing, and that's amazing, but you don't have to scale. If you're at a place in your life or in your business where everything is great, you don't have to scale just to scale. Very often with that comes a tremendous amount of time, frustration, new employees, new drains. Don't scale just to scale. Ask yourself, what do I want to get out of it? Why do I want to do that? Ask yourself a bunch of questions to figure out what is the real meaning behind whatever the goal is? Why am I even doing this? And the other thing I wanted to add to that, it's if you're in a good spot, you're in a good spot. You don't have to ruffle the feathers just to keep building and growing. I said to Sarah, we were talking about her business and she was talking about how do you go to the next level. And I'm like, why do you want to go to the next level? What's wrong with the level you're at right now? And we often get lost in this rush to grow and be better. And it's important, but you don't just do it just to do it. You have to have a reason why and what's the downside and what's the upside of that. So I just think that's an important thing to mention, not to scale just to scale. So back to the question, when do you just get out of things? What's the thought process behind, I don't think I can do it or this isn't working? I took a couple of notes. I want to share them with this. By the way, how's this for a system? Ripped out piece of paper. Things in life have gotten so complicated that sometimes the simple things work. I went into a rental car the other day and I couldn't even figure out how to roll down the windows because they made it so voice activated. What happened to the good old fashioned roll down the window? People try to overcomplicate things. I'm going to keep it really simple. That works for me. So the first thing is, before I quit on anything, especially as it relates to business, I make sure that I've exhausted all of my options and resources. Have I left every rock unturned? Have I spoken to everybody? Have I tried every angle? Have I researched everything? Have I knocked on every door? And I asked myself that question, what more could I do? And very often what I found is most people go 95% of the way. We all do the same 95% of the stuff. It's like cookie cutter. It's the same process. Hi, Hillary. Hey, Kay. But it's that extra 5%. It's that extra 5% that literally weeds everybody out. I've had multiple partners that have quit in that last 5%, and then I've gone on to, to do things and bring it to the finish line. So I asked myself, have I exhausted all the resources? That's kind of like the first question that I do. And then the second thing is I ask myself is a very simple test: reward versus aggravation. I want things that are super low aggravating with the highest return. At this point in my life, if it's high aggravation, low return, I'm not doing it. You could give me a zillion shares of Google stock if it had this much aggravation. I'd rather have this much aggravation, and then the reward, it doesn't matter. It's all gravy if the aggravation is low at this stage. Early on in my career, the high aggravation for high reward was worth it. I didn't have a choice. But that's a very simple test that I say. So I ask myself, like, how depleting is this? How much aggravation is it? How is it, is it just killing me? Can I get out of this funk? And I use that as a litmus test. Then I ask myself if I'm staying in it for convenience. Am I in this just for convenience? Am I sticking around just because I don't want confrontation? I don't like confrontation. I don't like conflict. So I ask myself that question. If you're just joining, I'm going through the process of when do I decide if I'm going to quit something? When do I know to pull the plug on a venture or something? I ask myself, firstly, have I just to review, have I exhausted all the options? I ask myself, the risk versus the aggravation versus reward. Is this so aggravating? What does the reward look like for all that aggravation? I'm always looking for things that are low aggravation and high reward. All right. I ask myself if I'm staying in it for convenience. I don't like confrontation. So is that an excuse to not get out? I ask myself that question. I ask myself if I'm in it for my ego. Like, okay, this is going to be a blotch on my resume. Is that okay? How am I going to deal with that? And I go through this big checklist to ultimately make my decision. And it's a process. And I take the time before I make a decision like that. If I have a big decision between like quitting, I don't like the word quitting, but it just didn't work, time to try something new. I ask myself a lot of questions and I plan for it. I take the time before I make that decision. I don't just rush into it. What I don't do is I don't chase it with money that I don't have. I don't chase it with money that I don't have, and I don't go dig deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper just because my ego is preventing me from saying this didn't work. So I really go through this process, of asking myself all these questions. So it's a really hard decision, when you're in something and you're like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 4 years. I haven't moved the needle. I haven't gotten any traction, but I have all this money in, I have all this time. And I always say to myself, well, maybe you're bottlenecked. Like, what if you were to get out of that situation? Maybe a whole new world of opportunity would open up. So those are the kind of questions, hey Connor, that I ask myself, and then I make a decision. And then once I make the decision that it's not for me, or it's time to get out, or the business isn't working, I try to be as open with everybody as possible. I run right into the fire. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make, is they try to avoid the fire. Hey, Shannon, but as an entrepreneur, the things that have been the most successful in my life, I've gone right into the fire, So when this kind of decision is made, like, I let the investors know, I let the people closest around me know, I'm available to answer questions, and I try to tackle, I didn't always do that. You learn from your mistakes. And try to rule in crisis management. That rule in crisis management is you get it all out right away, get it all on the table, address it head on. So that's what I do. So if you're just joining, I'm going to leave this up. It was basically kind of like, what's my process when I go through a period of evaluating whether or not it's time to bail on an opportunity or bail on a business. What's the thought process? How do I handle it? How do I attack it? So that's what I talked about here today. I am heading to Vegas to give a speech, and then this Friday, I'm nervous, and I'm going to this Grant Cardone 10X conference in Miami. There's 33,000 tickets sold to the event. So when I recently emceed Ted Turner's event, it was Ted Turner's 80th birthday party, and there were all these dignitaries, ex-president. It was an amazing mix of people. And I was so nervous for it. I was so honored that they asked me to be the MC. I cleaned up, no hat, shaved, got ready. But I was so nervous when I got up there. This never happened to me. I know saliva. I was so nervous that I was talking like this. I couldn't get anything out of my mouth. So I'm just trying to think like, what happens in front of 33,000 people if my tongue gets stuck to the top of my mouth? And I'm like, Jesse, why are you talking yourself into dry mouth? You got to flip this fear into enthusiasm. So I'm giving myself this pep talk, but I'm really excited. So anyone that's going to be in Miami, laugh at my jokes that aren't funny. Help me out in the audience, and I'm looking forward to it. If you guys just joined, I did a quick little recap today on what goes through my mind in the decision-making process when it's time to pull the plug on a business or an idea or an opportunity, so you can review it. I'll email this out with some notes, and I'll speak to you guys on Thursday for the next call. Looking forward to it. I'll see you guys then. I'm getting to know everybody. Stephanie, good morning. I'm loving your posts, everybody. I'm reading them all. All the comments are from me. I'm reading everything, and I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks. I love that. I love that. Poupie, is that how you pronounce your name? I love it. All right, Kev, thank you, man. I appreciate it. We'll circulate this to the group, Kev. I'll write some notes up, and see everybody on Thursday.